I got married just to trade for a cow, Jonah Carver whispered inside the rickety wooden chapel, standing beside Lydia Harrow, the largest woman he had ever met. In that moment, he knew he had just given up both his pride and his future. That drought was more merciless than any curse. The fields split open, hundreds of cattle reduced to nothing but sun-bleached bones. Bank debt pressed down on him, and Jonah was about to lose everything. Then Silas Harrow, the wealthy man with golden teeth, appeared with his outrageous proposal. "Marry my daughter, and you will have the finest cow in all of Kansas. It will save your farm, but your dignity will be gone." That was the beginning of a chain of events no one could have predicted. And trust me, what happened next will shock you. Make sure to like and subscribe so you will not miss the next chapter. Inside the small wooden church, Jonah glanced at his new bride. Lydia wore a tight beige dress, her round face soft, but her eyes were sharp, as though she knew more than everyone else in the room. The preacher recited the vows, but Jonah heard nothing except the pounding of his own heart. His mind was fixed only on the strong Holstein cow, waiting in the Harrow barn, worth more than the land his father had left him, and the only hope of saving the farm. "Do you take this man?" the pastor asked. "I do," Lydia answered firmly, stronger than Jonah expected. When it was his turn, he swallowed hard. "I do." The ring pinched tightly onto Lydia's broad finger, but she pressed it down without hesitation. When the preacher declared them husband and wife, Lydia looked up at Jonah, her gaze half mocking, half amused, as if she was waiting for him to collapse. The wedding feast was awkward. Guests drank a little and then slipped away. Neighbours stared at Jonah as if he had just signed himself into a lifetime of hard labour. Their congratulations sounded more like funeral bells. By evening, Lydia gathered a few belongings and climbed into the wagon. They rode home in silence, the wheels squealing and wolves howling in the distance. Jonah thought of the cow, of his fragile future. But when they arrived, Lydia walked straight into the bedroom and locked the door with a sharp click. When she turned back, her eyes were cold and mysterious. That night would not be like anything Jonah had ever known. Jonah stood motionless at the locked door, his hand resting on the rusted knob. Inside, a candle flickered across Lydia's face, half in light and half in shadow, making her expression unsettlingly hard to read. "What are you planning to do?" he asked, forcing his voice to stay steady. The woman drew the curtains to block the moon, turned, and said with quiet finality, "My name is not Lydia." Jonah froze. She reached into a cloth bag and pulled out a thick bundle of files, spreading papers across the table. "I am Claire Walsh. Lydia Harrow died of fever 2 years ago. I only pretended to be her to get into the Harrow household. But I have a reason. Silas Harrow killed my father to seize the water rights at Dry Creek." Jonah shook his head. "You are making this up." "No." Claire tapped the papers. "He sabotaged my father's saddle and made the death look like an accident. I will bring him down." Jonah swallowed hard. "Why do you need me?" "He is feasting tonight, drunk and careless. This is our chance." Claire produced a small glass vial of clear liquid. "I do not need you to kill him. I only need your help to expose the truth." Jonah stared at the vial, his heart racing. He realized this marriage was not about him, nor about the cow. It was a trap. Claire continued, her voice steely. "We will release the evidence at the right moment. One public exposure will crush him." Jonah clenched his hand into a fist. In Claire's eyes, she believed she held all the cards. But Jonah Carver had a secret of his own, a card that had not yet been revealed. Jonah watched Claire lift the vial, her eyes cold, her hand steady. She thought she was in control, but Jonah had been waiting for this moment. You are on the wrong path, he said slowly. Claire tightened her lips, keys in her hand. My only mistake was thinking you would understand. Jonah leaned against the bed, strangely calm. That vial does not hold poison. Claire's eyes widened. What? It is just salt water. I bought it from your healer. He works for me. For 6 months, I have been tracing Harrow's men, dragging them into the light. Her face turned pale. You have been watching me? You are not the only one who lost something, Jonah replied. Harrow stole my cattle, seized my land, turned them into dowries. I do not want him to die quickly. I want him ruined and begging in humiliation. Claire's hand trembled as she set down the useless vial. But the evidence I carry, it is enough to destroy him. I know, Jonah nodded. The federal judge already has it. By morning, the arrest warrant will be here. Claire's voice cracked. You used me. We used each other, but my plan does not end with both of us hanging. Jonah unlocked the door. Tomorrow night, justice will come. Just then, the thunder of hooves erupted outside. Torches flared. Shouts filled the night. Harrow's men stormed in, armed to the teeth. Claire's eyes went wide. Jonah's jaw tightened. Someone had betrayed them. Tonight, there would be no justice. Tonight, there would only be blood. The pounding hooves tore through the night. Jonah blew out the candle, darkness swallowing the room. Through the crack in the door, torches blazed. At least 6 riders charged into the yard. Claire clutched Jonah's arm, trembling. How did they know? Jonah's teeth clenched. The preacher, Harrow owns him. He shoved Claire into the root cellar, along with all the papers. No matter what you hear, do not come out. Then he grabbed his rifle, checked the 6 rounds. And you, she whispered, I will give them what they came for. If they want blood, they will remember tonight. The front door burst open. Torches flared. Silas Harrow sat high on his horse, 5 gunmen around him, and the county sheriff by his side. Harrow roared, Jonah Carver, surrender yourself. Jonah stepped onto the porch, rifle lowered. Congratulations on the wedding, Silas. Your daughter is quite remarkable. Harrow sneered. You know well she is Claire Walsh, and you are her accomplice. That, the sheriff spurred forward. Both of you will die as traitors. Jonah raised his rifle, not at the men, but at the torch in Harrow's hand. You made a grave mistake, Jonah said softly. Harrow squinted. What mistake? The rifle cracked like thunder. Flames exploded across Harrow's cloak, panic scattering the riders. In that chaos, new hooves thundered in. The federal banner waved under the moonlight. Marshal Hayes rode in with his agents, their voices booming with the arrest order. Jonah gripped his rifle tighter. He knew this night was far from over. This was only the opening move of a greater war. The corrupt sheriff panicked, drawing his gun to flee. But Claire emerged from the house, lantern in one hand, thick stack of papers in the other. She had not hidden in the cellar, as Jonah thought, but had already sent word to the federal marshals. Marshal Hayes, her voice rang clear and strong, I have proof of Silas Harrow and Sheriff Warren's crimes, murder, land theft and corruption. The hired gunmen immediately dropped their weapons. Warren barely squeezed his trigger before Jonah shot the revolver clean from his hand. Marshal Hayes spurred forward, his voice stern. Claire Walsh has worked with the federal government for 3 months. We have confessions, documents, and witnesses enough to end your reign of blood. Harrow, his cloak still smouldering, stared at Claire and Jonah with wild, broken eyes. All of this was just a trap? No, Claire answered, stepping to Jonah's side. This is the truth. Adelaide, my sister, died because of you, and tonight I reclaim justice for her. Hayes locked irons on Harrow's wrists, then turned to Warren. You are both under arrest for murder, theft, and treason. Every crime will be laid bare before the court. The torches burned low, fading with the fall of Harrow's empire. Dragged away in chains, Silas Harrow still cursed and spat, while Warren hung his head, knowing all his power had turned to dust. The men who once ruled the land were now prisoners of the federal law. Claire stood still, clutching the stack of papers, a weapon sharper than any gun. Jonah watched her, feeling both a stranger and a companion stirring inside him. "This marriage is real," Claire whispered, turning to him. "But you need to know, it did not begin with love. It was only part of the plan to bring down Harrow." Jonah frowned. "And you hid the truth that Lydia was really your sister." Claire drew a deep breath, her voice trembling but steady. "Adelaide discovered Harrow's forged papers, stealing the water rights. She planned to expose him, and he poisoned her. My sister died protecting strangers she never even knew." Tears rolled down Claire's cheeks, but her eyes shone. "Tonight, justice was served. For my father, for my sister, for all who were destroyed by him." Marshal Hayes rode closer, his voice firm. "You both have done the right thing. From here on, the rest belongs to you." The hoofbeats of the departing escort faded, leaving only silence over the broken farm and two souls who had just walked through a night of fire and blood. When the escort disappeared into the distance, the yard was left in heavy silence. The earth was still cracked, the sky still dry, and the cattle were gone. The marriage of Jonah and Claire had been built on deception, on a dangerous play, but at least the tyranny of Silas Harrow had fallen forever. Jonah turned, his eyes filled with both exhaustion and hope. What now? Claire looked at him, this time with a true smile, warm and genuine. "Now we rebuild, just as Adelaide always wished." "No." Jonah stayed silent, gazing at the woman who had entered his life with a lie, but remained through courage and faith. In the depths of loss, they had found a new chance. Sometimes, the most precious thing is not gold or land, but the chance to begin again, beside someone who understands you.